The gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Carter for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Witnesses, thank you all for being here. We're here to discuss the financial cost of the border. However, human cost is associated with previous extreme MAGA policies. Based on your collective knowledge and experience, can you share how the Trump administration's zero tolerance policy caused irreparable harm to young children and vulnerable families? In other words, what was the human cost to that horrific policy? All members, please, starting with you, sir.
I can't speak to what I saw under the Trump administration other than we had numbers that nowhere near rivaled what we are seeing today.
Why can't you speak to the Trump years?
Well, when we were looking at the numbers from several years ago, they're significantly less as far as undocumented people coming through the border.
So do you think that the policies that we have and the issue with the border began last year?
No, they've been bad for a while over the last 3 years, but we've never seen...
Just 3 years?
We've never seen what we're seeing now.
Excuse me, only 3 years?
We've never seen what we're seeing now.
Do you think the problems that we have at the border were only bad in the last 3 years? What about 5 years ago? What about 4 years ago?
They've tripled number-wise as far as what we see coming across the border.
Were they bad 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
They were 10 to 20 times less than what we see now.
Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time. Were they bad 5 years ago?
Yes, they were
Thank
bad.
you. Next, Ms. Borelli.
Thank you. No, I've never seen a situation where New York City or any other municipality that I have direct knowledge of has paid this amount of money for services provided to people who have crossed the border. That's not happened.
Can I interrupt you for a second, sir? Very respectfully, I'm going to ask the question again. Based on your collective knowledge and experience, can you share how the Trump administration's zero policy caused irreparable harm to young children and vulnerable families? Not New York City, we're just talking in general.
Sure. Well, my godson's mother emigrated to this country during the Trump administration. There were plenty of my neighbors who were admitted to this country during the Trump administration. Plenty of people got citizenship. There were tens of thousands of people who received asylum status during that administration. Again, though, what I have not seen in the difference between this administration and, frankly, the Trump administration and, frankly, the Obama administration was the sheer lack of resources and mass migration placed on America's cities.
So, and I'm going to go back to, as I queried the other member, do you think the problems are 3 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old? Because it appears from the testimony that this has somehow become an administration versus administration instead of an earnest attempt to find a solution. You know, the blame game, it won't solve the issues for the American people. What will solve the issues for the American people are honest discussions on how we can get better. And the assumption that somehow these problems began with the Biden administration is disingenuous at best.
I think it's fair and accurate to say that since the administration changed its policy on Remain in Mexico, since the changes in tactics and duties of border and custom agents, we just have a different scenario than we had in previous administrations. Again, I'm a New Yorker. There have been people who came to our city who are undocumented for as long as I can remember. But we have never had a crisis where 206 shelters are being placed willy-nilly in neighborhoods far and wide. We've simply never had that. We used to fight over homeless shelters like every city I'm sure you represent, where they go. They're controversial. People tend not to like living next to them. Now, seemingly overnight, in 1 year's time, we've placed 206 shelters.
I've got about 55 seconds. Real quickly, do you believe, yes or no, do you believe that individuals, families, and children deserve humane treatment?
100%.
Thank you. Mr. Melnick.
You know, the first time I saw a family seeking asylum was 2014 when I was just starting to become a lawyer. So, I mean, really, this is something that has been growing for a decade. We have seen this coming for quite some time under 3 different presidential administrations, and so far, we haven't made the major changes we need. On zero tolerance, I was at the border in 2018. I was in ICE detention centers interviewing parents who'd been separated from their children. I had a father sob, break down in tears, and beg to me, plead to me to help me get his kid back. And I'm never going to forget that, and I'm sure any child or parent who went through that, it's an experience that will never, ever go away.
And do you think this is something, as I've asked the other individuals, is this something that happened in the last 3 years?
This has been growing for a decade, and we need to have a national response for it.
And so we need a national response that's bipartisan and not one that is politically motivated to just pick at one party or the other, but come up with real solutions that address an age-old issue with problems at our border. Is that correct?
That's what I believe, yes.
I yield back. My time has expired.